Hej och välkomna till Pressträff Direkts sändning med Oncology Ventures. Idag har vi på länk från New Jersey bolagets nytillträdde vd Steve Carchedi. Good morning Steve.
Good morning.
Som vanligt så sänder vi live i Studio Direkts YouTube-kanal och i Facebook-gruppen Småbolagsjakten. Vi tar i vanlig ordning emot frågor från er i kommentarsfälten. Även om frågorna kommer att behandlas i slutet utav sändningen kan ni med fördel redan nu gå in och framförallt under presentationens gång. Presentationen kommer att hållas på engelska. This year, the board of Oncology decided to facilitate a focused new commercial strategy. Its first step was to get the signature of Steve Carchedi as the CEO and Henrik Moltke as the CFO. The second was to conduct a rights issue of 100 million Swedish kronor. This to provide the financial resources needed for the strategy. Steve, please walk us through your plan and your thoughts.
Well, first, Carlos, let me again say thank you for hosting me and the opportunity to address your audience with the new Oncology Ventures. We're very excited about where we're taking the company, and we're about to embark what I believe is kind of the next big phase for how oncology treatment is going to be in the future. Oncology Ventures is a company that's been focused historically on trying to generate and develop personalized medicine, utilizing the DRP platform that I'm sure many of your viewers are aware of, and we could talk more about that in a moment. But our goal really is to refocus our energies from what I think was historically more of R&D based activities, and rightfully so, looking at doing research to be able to validate and prove the success of the technology, to now we're embarking on a phase towards commercialization. And that is, how do we take all of the wonderful products that we've got available and how do we monetize them in the marketplace and how do we bring them forward? And so I'm delighted to be leading that effort and beginning to formulate the strategy in that regard. And what I'd hope to do today is to share with you a little bit more about how we're about to do that and how we're going to move that company from R&D towards commercialization. The company, I would tell you, has a very exciting, I call it problem, and that is that we have a full pipeline of assets, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And that problem is really trying to manage the I call it a champagne problem. Manage all of the wonderful assets that we've got forward, and how do we bring them to help cancer patients? And so the challenge for us is to be able to come up with a strategy, which we think we have, that is going to bring all that to life. But all that is all well and good. But the key to success for the company is really making sure that we have the right people in the right jobs doing the right thing. And so our first step in that endeavor is really making sure that we've brought on board a management team that can help us facilitate that success and that goal. And so if I could, I'd love to walk you through in some of the slide presentations that I've made available to share with you a little bit more about the management team and focus on who is part of that team and what they bring to the table. So if you can see in the second slide in their deck, we have kind of highlighted a little bit more about the management team. And why is this important? Well, this is important because, one, we have pulled together a group of individuals with extensive experience in both building, growing, and commercializing products in both the diagnostic and the oncology space. And so I'm proud to say that with Henrik as our CFO, and Steen, of course, who's been really the genius behind the technology, Thomas Jansen, Marie Folk, and James Cullen, we've formed a renewed management team that is focused on commercialization and focused on bringing shareholder value to our investors. And the company, as it's gone through that evolution, has made those changes, and we've made some significant organizational changes to that end. And we're excited about the folks we've got. I think the other thing that's important is you get a sense of the deep expertise and I'll call it pedigree of the folks and where they come from. You can see from my background, I've got a lot of experience in big pharma and in small biotech, and same as Henrik. So we are excited about the management team, and we know that with these folks kind of leading the helm, I'm privileged to be leading that effort. We're going to really bring OV to the next level, and hope you're with us on that journey. So I guess the best starting point is for me to highlight for you a little bit about the strategy and really where we're trying to take it. And if you take a look at our oncology pipeline, and which is the next slide in the deck, you can see that we are, as I mentioned earlier, have what I'll characterize as a champagne problem, that we've got a number of really exciting assets independent of the DRP system that will provide meaningful benefit for patients. And the challenge is, how do we go about bringing them all forward appropriately in order to provide shareholder value? And so we have gone through a pretty robust analysis of our portfolio, and we have really come to the conclusion that we were going to pick 3 specific products in our portfolio. In this case, Davitinib, 2X121, and Exabepione or Exempra, as 3 of our key products to not only better to demonstrate the DRP system, but to bring forward new technology for patients in areas with high unmet need. So that's the foundation for our strategy as our starting point, and we're excited about kind of bringing that to life. So let me talk a little bit about precision diagnostics and precision therapies for patients, and really highlight very briefly for you what it is that the DRP technology can provide patients in the area of oncology. And this is quite revolutionary in our view. Traditional therapy today has, as you can see, has been kind of everyone gets the same common treatment, and results for those treatments vary pretty dramatically. And the sad reality is cancer is complex, cancer is difficult, and cancer is extraordinarily smart, in that it always finds a way to either circumvent therapy or treatment. And while we have treated everybody, the results, quite frankly, are less than remarkable. Only a certain portion of patients tend to respond. And so the key to future success in oncology development is to say, how can we identify which of those patients will respond to treatment? And if we could be that precise, then we could do 2 things. We could reduce costs in the eyes of payers dramatically. We can increase efficacy and outcome of patients. And we can reduce the burden of toxicity that patients have had with these treatments where they get no benefit. And that's exactly where DRP comes in. The diagnostic response platform, if you will, or predictor, if you will, is a tool that helps figure all that out in very simplistic terms. It helps kind of sort through the myriad of different components in cell biology to make it effective. For instance, if you go to the next slide, and I kind of describe a little bit more of DRP in a very high level, and my intent is not to be overly scientific in this discussion, but just to highlight for you that DRP is basically trying to utilize computer systems and data from various sources into a way to kind of process it and understand the interrelations or dependencies of different data points. So simply put, understanding how a cancer tumor behaves, understand how the human body responds, and understanding how drugs interact creates a lot of interactivity between all these different systems. Well, the DRP is a sophisticated tool that processes all that information and creates a filter, if you will, to help identify, which information and which patients and which drugs are meaningful. And that's in its simplistic sense. Now, if you think of that as kind of that filtering mechanism, it can be quite remarkable. And it's something that we at Oncology Ventures are the only company in the industry today that has been able to kind of manage that and manage through that. And that's why this is so exciting. The next slide in the deck is kind of how we create a DRP, as we use that acronym quite a bit. And a DRP is in the little cartoon depiction on the slide to the left shows how complex. If you were to map out the genes and how genes talk to one another and how cancer talks to one another in a very simplistic terms, that's what it would look like, right? That times probably 1,000. So we're talking about an extraordinary amount of information that the human brain can't process. And what we do at Oncology Ventures is we take that information and we utilize computers and algorithms in order to figure that process that I mentioned earlier, that filter mechanism. So you can imagine how sophisticated this is. This is very similar to, how much of a industry change the iPhone was for Apple when it first came out, right? When the world was using flip phones and Apple came out with a technology you could hold in your hand and swipe and move pretty quickly, that was a transformational finding and a transformational approach. And now it's become the fabric of everything that we do today with our phones. We are about to embark on the same kind of thing. And that's really where DRP comes in. It is going to be, and it is now, a transformational point in the industry, and one that that we think is very, very exciting, and one that we know that we can help benefit patients. So the question that I often get is, well, there are a lot of companies that do a lot of work out there. Why is OV different, and what is it that makes our work so special? And that is, simply put, the current technology that is in the marketplace today is based on a very singular pathway. In other words, drug development in the past has been designed in a way where drug companies find a specific, what we call a target, something that's expressed on a tumor cell, and they develop a drug to inhibit that target. Simply put, is that. No different than if you had a bacterial infection. If you understood what the bacteria was, you can create an antibiotic to kill the bacteria, and that's well and good in systems where there's only one mechanism of action. But cancer is very complex. Cancer has the interactivity of genes. It has the interactivity of cells. It has interactivity of biology. It has a lot of complex systems, and so the current approach today, which going after one target one time, is not sufficient. And that's really what we're finding. So as you can see, the current treatment options out there today are less effective. They're not validated. They don't provide some drug benefit. Patients don't seem to get the right response rates. It's got its shortcomings. Conversely, OV excuse me, has been able to solve all those issues with DRP. And I like to think that finding is the best well-kept secret, if you will, in the oncology community, which we are about to change. And that is that, we can not only improve the success rates, we can demonstrate clinically and validate clinically that we can identify which patients will benefit. Imagine a scenario, for those of you that are football fans, that you could predict the outcome of a football game based on all the inputs that are in there and do that successfully. Now, I'm not advocating that DRP can help you solve your football games, but it does tell you how complex the system that we have, which is proprietary to us, and we have intellectual property to kind of support it. So all that is well and good, but I think the big challenge is how do you prove it to me? There's a saying here in the United States with a specific state, and their saying is Missouri is called the show me state, and that is show me the proof, show me that you can do this. And so the company over the past several years has been doing just that, and the lead compound that the company has been chasing behind, Liposis, which has been excellent in helping prove clinically that we can do what we say we can do, is what's shown on the slide, the next slide here, called validation of DRP in phase 2 clinical trial. And that just basically shows in simple terms that we can institute a DRP and predict patients, which on the left-hand side above the line, that are going to respond. And so that is a very exciting demonstration. But while that is well and good, we need to do more. And the physician community is generally very skeptical of things, and so creating scientific data is going to be the key to success, and that's part of what our strategy is going to be. Now, DRP is great, and it has been shown to be effective in a number of different drugs, and we keep adding to it. And in fact, right now we have over 35 clinical trials. This is just a sample in the next slide of which drugs have a DRP that have perfect benefit, right? Highlighted in green. And it works really, really well, and we continue to add to that. And the more that we have, the more robust the platform becomes, the more validated it works, the better it is for all the patients. And we're excited about this. And this is a short list to highlight for you, to let you know a little bit more about kind of what we have. But it doesn't always work. And we do have some drugs that on the next slide that, for instance, it may not work. And the question is, well, why is that the case? Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. One is some of the information and data is very limited for those drugs, and therefore it would take more research. We believe we can ultimately make all those products have a successful DRP, but it's going to take a lot of time, energy, and effort. And so the challenge for us is to focus on where we believe you can have the greatest impact in patients' lives. And so we're focusing our priority on life-saving drugs first, and then kind of working our way to those that may not have as big of an impact as in others. So the next slide is really what I characterize as our priority pipeline. What is the new strategy for the company? And the new strategy is, simply put, we are going to be focusing on 3 key products that are near to market, that will be able to get monetized quickly, and that we can get registered and approved with the DRP technology. So we're going to use the DRP technology to focus on Davitinib, Exempra, and 2X121, which is our PARP inhibitor. And that's because these are the products that have the highest potential for success, the highest potential from a market opportunity standpoint, and the highest potential to make an impact in the lives of patients. And DRP is going to be the cornerstone of driving that new strategy. So let me highlight very briefly for you a bit about the products, and then the potential and the excitement that we see with respect to these products. The first product is a product called Davitinib. It's a pan-tyrosine kinase inhibitor. The science is really unimportant unless you're a physician, but the simple reality is this is a drug that was originally developed by a big pharma company. We've been fortunate to have acquired it. And that means it's going through the full paces and rigor of a big pharma company and trying to get it to the market. What we're going to do is use DRP to improve the efficacy of that drug, and we're going to bring it to market and get it registered as quickly as we possibly can. Now, why is that important? It is a product that is going to be serving an area of high unmet need. In fact, it's going to be developed in renal cell carcinoma. This is a big cancer market right now. Today, it's $7+ billion markets. These are products that there are a number of products in the marketplace today that aren't as effective as this one. and they each bring in hundreds of millions of dollars. So from a pure commercial perspective, we're looking at large market potential with high unmet need, with the ability to utilize DRP towards success, and then monetize that to bring shareholder value to our investors. And so we're very excited about davitinib as kind of a starting point. So that's one. The next is Exempra, and this is it's called exabepiolone. Again, these are products that are already been vetted by a big pharma company. This is a product that's actually approved in the US market today, and our goal is to get it approved in the European markets, in the territories in Europe. And so utilizing the DRP, we are going to take this wonderful asset for which we have the rights for and look at developing it in metastatic breast cancer or adjuvant breast cancer. Now, breast cancer is a huge market, right? As you know, there are a multitude of drugs out there, $25+ billion market, and it's going to continue to kind of grow. And so strategically, we think it's an area that we want to be in. And this is a drug that provides us the ability to do that in a very rapid time period. So we're very excited about having this in our portfolio. The last one is 121, and I refer to this as our PARP inhibitor, PARP. It is an acronym for its mechanism of action. And this is a drug that we have fully licensed from another big pharma company, and we have global rights for it, which is exciting. But what's even more exciting, this is a group of drugs, or it's part of a class of drugs that has gotten a tremendous amount of excitement and interest because the mechanism of action is very, very interesting in the eyes of physicians. This is a compound that is going to be participating in an area of high unmet need today, again, in the billions, $8, $9, $10 billion market. There are a number of drugs that have just recently been approved in this segment, and I'll share with you a bit more of them in a moment. But more importantly, they don't have the DRP technology. And so we believe that our PARP inhibitor does two things. One is has a very unique mechanism of action. It not only uses this PARP technology, but it actually has a multi-targeted approach. So it's a much more potent drug in the marketplace. The second is we have the DRP to help better improve the efficacy rate of a PARP inhibitor in this segment, whereas others do not. And again, we're going to be working in a market that is in the billions. And so while there are some mountains to climb here, because we need to obviously go through the registration process, we as a company feel very confident that we can build the clinical roadmap to kind of get us where we need to be. And hopefully you'll be with us on that journey. Excuse me. So the next slide just highlights this PARP competitive landscape. And I think it's important to recognize that if you look at the number of products that are going after this category, they are all big pharma companies. They're all very excited about it. And they all have products that have various levels of shortcomings, right? They all have a PARP target, but they also have some issues along the way. And when we compare our PARP inhibitor against the landscape that's out there today, we by far have the most effective PARP inhibitor in the marketplace. Now that needs to be shown in clinical trials, which is what we plan on doing. But based on what we know today and based on our DRP, we believe we can increase the efficacy of PARP inhibitors in the marketplace. And we believe that our PARP inhibitor will be differentiated in the marketplace. As you can see in this chart, you get a sense that our molecule not only has the activity, but has the best safety profile. It has the best penetration profile, has the best market profile. And we think that bringing it forward is going to be transformational in that PARP space. So, you can see that there is a lot of interest in this, and we are the only remaining independent company, if you will, that has this technology, and we have the full rights to it, and we'll be kind of commercializing. So you can see why this one strategically is exciting for us, and why we're focused on going down the plan of bringing this to market. So the strategy in for the company in very simplistic terms is highlighted in what I describe as strategic horizons for growth. How do we build the company up to the next full phase of where it can be? And so, I call it stage one, or step one is really fundamentally focusing on our three key targets, developing them effectively, getting those products to market, utilizing DRP, and then showing the market how effective our DRP technology is. That is a key. The show me concept is important. We need to generate clinical data to show that we can do what we say we do it. While we have tons of data today and many, many clinical trials, scientists are always skeptical, and so we need to do more. And so that's really kind of step one. And at the same time, be able to do it in a way that the company can monetize value for shareholders. Step two is then once we've done that, to show the marketplace that we can do that not only with our drugs, but we can do with other people's drugs. And so we're going to look at embarking at partnerships across the board. And we'll be looking at partnerships across the board from beginning as well. But, once we have kind of proven the world that we've done what we said we can do, it's really about how do we expand it? How do we make it more global? How do we make it bigger? And then step three would be, okay, now that we've been able to do those two big areas, how do we make this something that could be for the average man and personalize it in a way that it can be very basic? And so our PRP approach technology is also another exciting area for potential. It does require a lot of investment and work, but we need to get these first steps squared away first before we can kind of expand that. Once we get to that potential, I can assure you that the market for DRP and PRP is going to be pretty extensive. The next slide just highlights for you a little bit about some of the great key opinion leaders. These are world-renowned oncologists that have been not only our advisors, but champions and supporters of the company. And I think it demonstrates to all of our investors that whether you believe what we think or not, the people that are more knowledgeable in treating patients are highly excited about what we're trying to do, and they're very supportive. And it gives you a flavor of the folks from various institutions like Mayo Clinic and Baylor and Dana-Farber. These are iconic locations around the world for drug development and oncology treatment. These are the people at the forefront, and we're delighted that they're working closely with us to be able to bring the portfolio to life. So the next slide, before I kind of take a pause, because I know I've been throwing a lot at you, is really the question of what are we going to be doing differently? And I can tell you that the first and foremost is we've come forward with a completely new strategy. We have a whole new management team that are focused on commercialization, and that is really kind of prioritizing the success of our company. And that's a big transformational change. So a new strategy, and that's normal for companies. They generate R&D, they generate development, and they move towards commercialization. So this evolution is normal. And now we're putting people in place that have knowledge in this area, and I'm happy to be part of that. So that's key one, a new company strategy and a new company vision focused on three key priorities towards commercialization. The second thing that we're doing is we're putting in pretty significant, robust financial controls. We have gone through and reduced operational costs. We've reallocated resources across the company. We put together a more formal budget process in place and using that by program. And what we're instituting, as any company would, is good fiduciary responsibility, managing the company successfully. And that's important, especially as it relates to the capital that we raise. We want to make sure that everyone who's an investor knows that their money is being spent well. It's being spent with a lot of thought, energy, and scrutiny to make sure it's really trying to bring value to our shareholders. Next, as I mentioned earlier, I put together a completely new organizational structure. We've basically reorganized and reduced headcount by 30+%, and basically pulled out what I'll characterize as folks that unfortunately didn't have the skill set that we need for the future. And we wish them well, but we also want to make sure the company is set up for success and making sure I've got the right people in the right job at the right time. And that's really what we're focused on. And then the last important point is that building a new organization kind of culture that's focused on driving shareholder value, focused on providing, monetizing the technology, taking great technology and bringing it to life in a way that ultimately raises capital and money and ultimately the success of the company. And really, that is a cultural dynamic change. It's really going from the evolution of research to the evolution of commercialization. And I'm proud to be leading that effort. And that is exactly what is kind of my sweet spot and what has kind of attracted me. So that's what we're doing differently than what has happened kind of in the past. So kind of in summary, and then I'll be happy to pause for questions, is, the company, the new investment approach is one. We've got a focused approach on top priorities for our oncology pipeline, focused on driving value and looking at clinical development to get us there. We're going to be the first to market the DRP platform, the first to put together a diagnostic predictor platform in the marketplace that combines all the respective data points that help not only patients pick which therapy, but which therapy they shouldn't get. And that's going to be pretty powerful. More importantly, it's going to help us develop our drugs and show better efficacy because we'll be able to identify the patients that would respond. We've put together a very efficient development model. We've been very clear in managing where we're going to develop the products, which clinical trials, been really kind of effective in putting in a thoughtful plan rather than trying to do a lot of little things fairly well. We're going to do a few things very well. And that's really part of the focus. The fourth, we've got an experienced management team. As I mentioned to you earlier, we've been fortunate to have the kind of talent to be part of the company. And we hope to continue to build that database of experience and talent. And I'm excited about that. And then last but not least, most importantly, return on investment. And that is our goal was to develop our pipeline to return to shareholders value. And so I coined it that we have a new focus strategy to drive shareholder value. And that's really what the new OV looks like. And we're hopeful that many of you continue to be part of that and are excited about being part of it in the future. So, Carl, let me stop there. I know I'm throwing a lot out to everybody, but I'll be happy to pause and answer any questions.
Thank you for that, Steve. Excellent. You should be aware, and we should all be aware, that there's a lot of questions coming in here. So without further ado, I would just kick in with the question as they arise. And I remind everyone that there will be a roadshow coming up next week. You can find the information on the company websites and on Investerarbrevet if there are questions still out there. The first one is, what will the new management's main focus be in the coming 6 months? Steve?
Yeah, and so the short answer to that is it really is putting together the clinical plans for the 3 assets that I just mentioned to you. Really putting together the clinical trial plans to get those assets towards a registration. So for instance, the Vitinib is an example. We have to put together a FDA, an NDA, if you will, a new drug application for filing. And that's so next 6 months is about getting our clinical group to put all that information together and get it filed and send it into the FDA so that we hopefully get approval. That's no easy task. It's a big endeavor, and it will take at least 6 months to perhaps do that. But that's one starting point. And the others is running the clinical trials for those other 2 products, again, to move them forward. So, there's going to be a simultaneous development plan over the next 6 months. And I'm happy to say I got the right people to be able to do it. So it's really going to be what I'll say is basic blocking and tackling, basic drug development that a early stage biotech company or pharma company would do. That's what we're going to do. Good question. Thanks.
Yeah, and obviously, as you mentioned, the regulatory authorities here, Dovitinib, will that be in the hands of the FDA this year, or would you dare to have a timetable there?
Yeah, no, I don't think we can make a prediction. I wish I could predict how the FDA behaves. Certainly not this year, I can tell you that. We've had ongoing discussions with the FDA, but for those of you that are familiar with the space, FDA is very unpredictable. And so what we can do is, there are certain requirements for when you file that they have to respond. You submit an NDA, they have to respond within a certain period of time. And so we're going to try to get it to them as quickly as we can. We hope that they respond in a timely fashion, and we hope that that response is in a way that helps support our goals. But it's unpredictable. I think the company's done a fairly good job of trying to anticipate as many issues as they can, but I wish I could tell you more. There is a level of uncertainty with the FDA.
Obviously, that's a question that is easier to ask than to reply. DRP, there is a lot of questions regarding that, and they are at this point focusing on the competition. Do they have anything that will compete in similarity or in Direkt? What shall we think?
Yeah, there are no companies out there that are doing what we're doing, the way we're doing it. There are a number of companies that do simple diagnostic tests. That, as I mentioned earlier, diagnostic tests no different than let's say getting your blood test and determining what your cholesterol level is. And so that specific test is helpful, because if you have a certain kind of cancer that has an expression of a certain element or certain target, the test will tell you whether you have it or not. What it doesn't tell you is whether you're going to be responsive or not. And that's the shortcoming. So it's more or less, there are diagnostic tests that would say, yes, you have cancer, but I can't tell you which drug you're going to benefit from. And that's one of the shortcomings. So there are a number of diagnostic companies. Foundation Medicine is one of them, and there are a couple others, but their approach has a significant limitation. And that's been part of the problem with a lot of these diagnostic companies. I think what we have to look at is think about Oncology Ventures and DRP, not necessarily just as a diagnostic company, but more of a diagnostic platform or a tool that provides more than just a measure of success, but it's more of an intuitive tool to provide guidance and input to the oncologist to help make them a better doctor. And so that's a little bit of a different dynamic. So no, there are no competitors out there that we're aware of that are doing what we're doing. And yes, there are some diagnostic companies doing diagnostics, but there's a tremendous amount of shortcomings.
And a follow-up question on the DRP is DRP as a standalone entity. Obviously, it is unique. And is there a possibility to sell the DRP by itself to big pharma or to big hospitals? And I'm not referring to the licensing, in licensing, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, a short answer to that is yes, and we will absolutely be entertaining that. And the way I describe it is we're going to be opportunistic on how we do that and where we do it. There's no doubt. If you remember step 2 in my chart, it indicating strategic partnerships with big pharma, and that's exactly it. So DRP helps us and our portfolio effectively, but alone DRP can help other companies do the same kind of thing. And so we want to be thoughtful in how we do that and how we monetize the value. We don't want to just give it away everywhere. We want to make sure that it's done so it provides value back to the company. So we believe that we can go to the big pharma companies and say, hey, we have generated a DRP for your product. We can help improve the efficacy of your product, and we can help improve your development plan for your product. And when you have that conversation, I can tell you get their attention pretty quickly. And so that's another differentiator that some of these other diagnostic companies are unable to do. So yes, the short answer is we are looking very hard at other strategic partnerships to leverage DRP beyond our portfolio.
Thank you for that, Steve. Conscious of time, I will just throw in the last question here. And as we've seen, we have a rights issue here. Do you see more new share issues, or how do you see finances going forward to 2025? Partnership or anything else, or a revenue stream indeed?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult to predict. I mean, drug development is expensive and does require capital, but we have a lot of levers that we can pull on, if you will, as we move forward. One is, as we're successful with launching the products that I mentioned to you earlier, that provides shareholder value and hopefully increases their stock price. It gains the attention of other parties. Second, we're evaluating partnerships with other companies, as mentioned in a previous question, and that provides some economic benefit too if we strike a partnership with a big pharma company as part of it. And third, we continue to look at companies that once we develop our portfolio, we attract the attention of pharma companies looking for good assets. So not only do we can bring these assets to market, once they become successful, it attracts attention of big pharma companies. And having, coming from big pharma myself, I'm that person on the other side of the fence. And so I can tell you there's a high interest in active, effective pharmaceutical drugs in oncology. So I think we've got those kind of revenue streams or potential revenue streams ahead. Can I predict when and where it's going to happen? Difficult to do that. But, this is a company that we want to build. This is a company that wants to get big. It's a company that we want to make widely successful. With those potential opportunities coupled with some ideas, we think we can make it even more successful. And there may be needs for capital raises in the future, like any company has. And the one thing I can promise all of you is full open, honest, and transparent communication to let you know what it is that we're doing, why we're doing it, and so to answer your questions. And hopefully you join us in that journey, because it's going to be a very exciting rocket ship ride for us.
All right, and with that, thank you very much, Steve, for very interesting presentations. And let's see you all next week on the roadshow. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Carlo. I look forward to seeing everybody. Take care.
Bye.